This is Off Track.
Hello and welcome to one of those rare off tracks with Hinch and Rossi on a Tuesday, both showing up today because we managed to wrangle ourselves a very special guest.
It's because you got an interesting guest for once.
That's true. So Jack Hawksworth joins us today. Hello, Jack. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us on.
Yeah. Alex likes missing the Tuesday episodes because a lot of times it's just Tim and I talking about like old racing movies or what we had for dinner.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's understandable. But when we had the opportunity to have you on, we're like, hell yeah, and Alex said hell yeah, and here you are. So look, let's a little bit of background, a little bit of an intro for the fans who don't know as much about Jack. This is going to be what, year 9 in IMSA with Lexus?
Yeah, be year 9 in IMSA and year 7 with Jimmy and Sully, effectively. So
okay,
it's been quite a long tenure. And then outside of that, I did do a few IMSA races in went in IndyCar as well. So
like PC,
full time.
Right?
Correct. Yeah, and that's kind of how the whole Lexus thing came about. But it's been a while now, almost 10 years.
We'll get to that. 87 starts, 11 wins, 27 podiums, a class championship. You've won Sebring. You've won Petite. I don't think you've won Daytona yet.
I was still trying. Hopefully this year.
Yeah. You're in GTD. I'm a GTD Pro, so you can still win. Yeah.
Were you in the Conway car last year? With the
with the P2 early on. That was brutal.
Yeah. Because I think you guys were pretty much the class of the field all month, right? And
we were good.
Yeah.
I think in the end, the BMW and the Ferrari were, they kind of popped up on race day. So Ferrari always does, right? Suddenly the end of the race, it seems to, they have the special map or whatever they put on the thing and they go. So I don't think we'd have had anything for them, but definitely podium position probably.
So you mentioned how Ferrari and BMW popped up on race day. James and I have, dabbled in the sports car stuff. Obviously he's coming back this year with Lamborghini, and we've talked a little bit, and explained to the fans the BOP thing that exists in sports car racing and IMSA and the challenges that come with that. But I'd be very interested to hear kind of your perspective because you have much more experience than us, and kind of, give us and our listeners a little bit of insight into like the politics of that and how that game is played. And, as much as Daytona is the crown jewel race, that you want to win and the partners want to win, you still have to look at the year as a whole and make sure that you don't kind of go too fast too early. So kind of walk us through how you approach a year and, starting with Daytona here in a week.
Yeah, it's I think the IMSA season's it's kind of unique in that you obviously got the series, which is, a highlight. Everybody wants to win that. But then really you've kind of got 3 bucket list races, starting with Daytona, then Sebring, and then Petite. And so the other races, everybody wants to do well in the short races. But ultimately, if you can win one of the big ones, then that's kind of that's what the manufacturers want. That's what the teams want. So a lot of focus goes into those long races. And then a lot of focus outside of that goes into almost being consistent through the shorter races to give yourself a shot at the championship. But Daytona is probably the most unique race we do because we have this official test the week before. So it's been notorious for everybody comes and does this 3-day test, the Raw before the 24. But then there's an opportunity for IMSA to make changes to the parameters of car in terms of the weight. Last year it was like air restrictor for naturally aspirated cars or turbo boost for turbo cars. So nobody ever wanted to be too shiny the weekend before the race, just in case, IMSA made a change and they slowed you down, or if you were too slow, they might bring you up. Some manufacturers, I think, play the game a little bit more than other ones. But yeah, certainly there's some gamemanship that goes into being fast when you need to be fast is how I would describe it. Like to win the series, you need to be consistent every weekend. And you kind of the saying goes, and I guess it applies to any series, but if you've got a fast car and you're going to show performance, then you better win that weekend. And then the worst thing you can do is obviously show good performance and have a poor result, if that makes sense, because BOP is ultimately based off balance of the car's performance throughout the season.
It's race to race, right? Or is it based on the last year's event at that track?
So the rest of the season, Sebring through to Petite, is based off the Sebring through to petite races last year, but Daytona standalone, just because of the nature of the track, because you've got the big long straights and stuff. Like the balance of performance for that track ultimately would need to be different to other ones as well, just because the characteristics are so different. It's a bit like Le Mans, really. So that BOP is standalone. And I think as well, just because the fact you have the test the week before and stuff, it's always, I'd say, a bigger talking point at that race than it is at any other one. But this year is very different because they've just brought in, as James will know, because he's racing in the GT class there, they've just brought in torque sensors for all of the cars. Oh. So in the past, it's been a bit more guesswork, I guess, from IMSA's perspective in understanding, the straight line speed of each car and the power and performance and whatnot. And this year they're controlling the power a different way with these torque sensors, so they can see exactly how much power we're putting to the ground during the race live. So yeah, pressure will be on IMSA to see if they can make it a competitive race.
It's going to be fascinating, isn't it? Because so the phenomenon that you're describing is if you're listening at home, you've probably heard the term sandbagging, right? So that's what sandbagging is. You go to the Roar, which if you're listening to this, we've just had it. We're recording it before, so none of us have been on track yet, but this will come out the Tuesday before the race, after the Roar. So in theory, Jack, you and I will have been on track by the time people are hearing this. But yes, there is that gamesmanship, like you say. You don't want to show your hand too much because changes can be made to the BOP, the balance of performance, before the race. But that's kind of where these torque sensors come in because, I mean, you've probably, without giving away maybe any trade secrets from your own program, what are some of the clever ways that you've heard of from manufacturers and how they kind of sandbag and control their pace during the Roar or practice sessions or whatever?
Well, I mean, I don't want to get myself in trouble here, so I'll
right, yeah.
kind of...
what have you heard someone else do? What is BMW doing these days,
Well, there you go. I mean, that's a big one, right? So, like, you look at the race last year where Ferrari and BMW were actually penalised after the race. They had all their championship... Even though they were able to keep the race win, I think they had their manufacturer points deducted, all this kind of stuff. And that was based on the fact that during the... So IMSA can see all of the micro splits around the track. There'd be like 12 different segments, right? So they can see, okay, exactly how fast each car is between each point of the circuit. The race teams can only see the 3 sectors during the race weekend, but they see a lot more than we can see. And for instance, with like certain manufacturers, not naming names, are able to, or were before the torque sensors, able to turn up their engines and turn down their engines quite a lot. So for instance, you'd be in practice at the Roar and you might be quicker on the straight than, say the Ferrari or the BMW, and then you get through to the race weekend and suddenly that car's 10 kilometers an hour or whatever, faster on the straight. It's accelerating harder. They've suddenly found, 1 second a lap time. And a lot of it, I think, was done via the power plant and manipulation there. The other thing that people would do is that, you could artificially run more wing in the car. You could artificially run draggier parts on the car. Same, obviously, you go to Indianapolis for the 500, right? You want the car to be as free as possible and you have all the best stuff on it. The counter to that is you can turn up at the Roar with all the worst stuff on the car and then get to the race and, put all your free bits on, freer bearings, uprights, all that kind of stuff. So I think there's a little bit of that going on. And then the big one is obviously the driver can control a lot as well. It's very difficult when you look in the data. I'd say a driver can tell actually more than an official or more than a tech person, right? Like when we look at an onboard video or we look at data, we can see a little bit more if a driver's really pushing or not, or if he's under the limit. But yeah, as a driver, you can, brake a couple of meters earlier here, pick up the throttle a couple of meters later, just roll 2 mile an hour less speed to the apexes of the hairpins and stuff. And yeah, you can artificially manipulate it that way as well. You could run heavy with old tires. There's 1,000,001 ways you can do it. You can make a car feel pretty bad if you want.
Yeah. But like you say, sorry.
Yeah. I think throughout all of that, we complain about it, you talk about it, but it is amazing that at the end of the day, of these endurance races, these 24-hour races, you're still coming down, to the last hour and a half. I know obviously yellows, shape this up to be what it is, but across all classes, most of the time, you've got 3 or 4 cars fighting for the win, and it's a sprint race to the finish. So I think that as much as it's a challenge and frustrating for teams in the moment, especially when you do your homework in the off season, you come with a good program and a good package, and sometimes you get penalized for that. Most of the time, at the end of the race, you're at least in with a shot, right? Assuming nothing bad has happened over the 24 hours. So I think that's still what makes IMSA so unique to IndyCar racing, and we'll talk about the comparisons and differences in a second from your experience. But it's amazing to me how much it's become this 24-hour sprint race ultimately.
Oh, it's unbelievable. I mean, this isn't a knocker. I actually think they do a really good job of it, right? Like, it swings and roundabouts. Sometimes you might be on the good side of it, sometimes you might be on the bad side of it, but yeah, ultimately, like you say, how many times do we get to an end of the race and it's a Corvette against a BMW, against a Ferrari, against a Lexus, against a McLaren? Like, everybody's close, right? Because everybody's doing the same kind of stuff. So ultimately, it works itself out. And yeah, like, I mean, you can't knock them, right? Every how many times have we seen like last 5 minutes of a race? Awesome. Elbows out, and yeah, it's close. So super competitive. Not easy to do as well. You look at how different these cars are. Mid-engine to a front engine. You look at the COG of, the McLaren or the Ferrari, and then you look at the height of like the Ford Mustang or something, and you're trying to balance those cars. Not an easy job.
No, for sure. And then, like you say, the driver has a big part to play in that. And even, look, all the technical stuff that IMSA can look at aside, as you say, the driver can still influence it quite a bit. And there are a lot of times in sports car racing where you don't have to drive flat out. You shouldn't drive flat out. As someone that came from a sprint racing background, you came from open wheel, you had, was it you were 3 years in IndyCar?
Yep.
Right? Where predominantly, unless you're saving fuel, it's qualifying laps all the time. How hard was it to when you make that switch over to sports cars, to kind of switch that mentality and be like, no, there are times where I have to be so disciplined, drive, whether it's to a lap time or to just like a mental limit, because I know that going too fast is actually detrimental.
Oh, it was super difficult. It was
it's
a challenge.
The worst.
Like, yeah. Well, the other thing as well, right, is like, especially when you come into a team early on, right? Every driver wants to show what they can do, right? There's the selfish part of it where you want to show that you can go as quick as the other guy in the car, or you can go quicker or whatever. So there's a personal element to it as well, where you want to show your speed, right? You're a racing driver. So yeah, certainly I remember coming out of IndyCar, going to Daytona, and my whole mentality, I think, in that race was, okay, I want to be, every stint needs to be, on the limit, and I want to have the fastest average pace, all the usual stuff, right? And then you realize, exactly to your point, James, that actually big picture here, and I don't know what it was like in the McLaren last year, but for us in the Lexus, I can tell you, like, if we push for 23 hours, we get to the last hour of the race, there's nothing left of the car, right? Like, the brakes are gone, you might have lost a dive plane here or whatever. Like, actually, one of the biggest skills in endurance racing is getting to that last couple of hours and having, all the bits on the car, having some brakes to go racing with, and like being able to really maximize what you have at the end of the race, because you can, all these cars start the race, right? And you might be 0.2 slower than another manufacturer average pace when the cars are in great condition. But if you can get to hour 22, hour 23, and they're carrying a little bit of damage, or they've got a bit more wear on the brakes, and your stuff's in perfect condition, then you leave your guy at the end who's closing the race with something to fight for, and something to fight with. So for sure, the first couple of years I was in sports cars, I definitely had the mentality of all in, and then began to realize there's way more to this than that, and I need to adapt my mindset here, especially in these longer races, to be a little bit more mechanically sympathetic would be the word I'd use. So, but it's like a switch though, right? Because there is that element of it where you need to protect the car, but then there's also the other element of it where you need to almost click your fingers and just go into kill mode.
10 tenths again. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's an interesting challenge for sure.
It's clearly something you picked up quick though, because I think if you look at the American motorsport landscape, right, you've got three things that you would dream of doing as a kid. It's Cup, it's IndyCar, or it's, a factory driver in sports cars, right? So to get to the level that you have achieved and have been with Lexus for 9 years now in a factory program, Clearly you did something right in the beginning and you continue to. What do you think, is something that differentiates you? Because there's a lot of drivers, right, in sports cars, because you're sharing the car, a minimum of 2, up to 4 sometimes. Like, where do you think you've been able to find kind of this longevity? And was it something that you thought that when you started this program, you were going to be here almost a decade later? Or did you look at IMSA as maybe like a gap year and to get back to open wheel cars? Or like, where was your mindset with that?
Sounds like a job interview here. So what are your strengths? What would you bring to the company?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I guess to answer the last question, when I first came into IMSA full time with Lexus, like how did I see it? Did I see myself here for 10 years? That's difficult. I don't know what you guys are like, but I have a problem looking too far, if that makes sense, especially as I get older now. Like, I've just noticed in this sport, things can change so quickly, right? And you just never, it's difficult to have a long-term plan. So at the time, I didn't know. I still obviously had just left IndyCar. And at the time, I was probably a little bit, my IndyCar career hadn't ended the way I'd hoped. And there was probably a little bit of bitterness there and stuff. So I was excited to be out of that paddock in a way and have a new challenge. So I wouldn't have said I looked at it as a stopgap so much, but as an opportunity to, kind of do something else and hopefully win some races, because it had been a tough couple of years where I'd not been doing any winning, and I just wanted to get back to winning. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always think, for me, like, as a racing driver, that's the bit I enjoy. I enjoy the when you can win, and I feel like any driver who tells you, they just enjoy being at the track. Like, I don't know. That's not fun for me. Like, I have to feel like I have a chance to do well. In terms of like what's, I guess, kept me, where I am, and I guess being able to, stay with the same manufacturer a long period of times. I feel like we've grown together. Because you look at the Lexus program when we first came in 2017, 2018, we were not very successful. Like, we didn't stand on the podium in the GTD class for the first 2 years, and then we finally got my first win in IMSA, well, second win in IMSA, but first win with Lexus in 2019. And so I felt like I developed a lot as a driver throughout those years. As I was kind of touching on before, initially I came in and it was just balls to the wall. I want to show my speed. And then the program wasn't quite where it needed to be in order to win either, which meant that I had to develop other parts of my game whilst the team was developing. And then slowly we developed the team. I began to have an understanding of these races, and I think I became more of a complete driver. And I think now, 7 or 8 years down the line, I just have quite a high race IQ in terms of, like, I understand, how the races are going to unfold, and I have a good idea of what's important and maybe what's not so important in terms of trying to get these results. And I just have a good relationship with the team. So we've grown together, if that makes sense. And
yeah.
I've improved, and then the team's improved at the same time.
And that team it's a serious factory effort. I mean, everyone's got to remember that Lexus is Toyota, right? So you guys are part of the TRD program. And again, I don't know many manufacturers, certainly not in North America, that spend and prepare the way that Toyota do. The facilities that you guys have available to you, obviously I know Townsend Bell very well. He's actually literally calling my cell phone at this very minute. Sorry, Townsend. But he's told me about the facilities that you have, whether it's the training, the simulator. I mean, everything at the TRD campus that you guys have access to. I mean, this is a fully fledged factory effort. And I just wondering if you can explain for everyone how much preparation goes into, because I kind of look at, you sort of mentioned it, there's your championship, which everybody wants. That's the same across all motorsports. And there's a race or two that everybody wants, which I think is the same. The IndyCar equivalent, obviously, is the 500. Daytona is the 500. You know how much effort goes into a Daytona 500 entry. Is it that same kind of feeling for preparing for the 24? Is it that much more energy, that much more effort, that much more focus that goes into it when you're starting the season off with the biggest race of the year?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, you're right. We're very lucky. Like, at Toyota, we do have a lot of great facilities, especially down here in Charlotte, the simulator, the shaker rig, all kinds of bits and bobs, which a lot of other manufacturers and teams don't have access to. So that's pretty cool. The training facility. I was actually training with Townsend yesterday there. So it's funny you bring that up. And he's the only person who's ever watched. So they have a strict you can't train with your top off in there. And obviously T-Bell walks in there first thing, taps off. It's pretty funny.
So California. He's used to surfing.
So much sense.
Yeah. Malibu Barbie, as we call him, is in there just with his shirt off.
I believe it. Yeah.
I give a guy kudos though. He's 49 and he's shredded still. So I tell him, I was like, you're in better shape than when you were racing. For Daytona specifically, getting back to that, yes, it is. It feels like there's a lot of prep goes into it. Very similar to, I guess, the mindset when you build up to the 500, right? That's the big one. You can win the Daytona, you can win the 24 hours a Daytona, and it's almost like the rest of the season. You can. You're
not on cruise control, but you're going to feel good at the end of the year.
Exactly. You've got it in the bag, right? No matter what happens from there, you've had a successful year. So definitely a lot of work goes into it. And then I just think it's just a marathon, right? We have this test next week. So then there's the build up to that test. And you do the test and then you stay in there. It reminds me a lot of the 500. I always felt the 500 it dragged on for so long, right? There's so much build up to it. And Daytona is kind of similar. So it feels like there's a lot of effort. And it's kind of, I feel like as a driver, being able to not get too excited about it and be quite, level-headed from the beginning is important. Yeah,
it's one race out of a 10-race championship. But I think I read somewhere one year that between the Roar and the race, it's 1/3 of the miles run of the entire season are done at Daytona. So it's very heavily biased towards it. As a driver, we love asking drivers this in IndyCar. As a driver, would you rather win Daytona or a championship? And I know it's a little skewed because you've won a championship, and so I'm sure Daytona seems like it's. But let's say you had won neither, or you had one of each. What would you rather have?
I'll always say championship, and that was always when anyone's ever asked me that, I would always, it'd be awesome to win Daytona, but I just think a championship is so hard earned. It's such a slog, right? From January through to October or whatever in IndyCar, March through to October. You've got to be the best guy over, or the best team over, 10-month period. So I'd love to win a Rolex because I don't have one, but I think in terms of what means the most, I think the championship, in my opinion, carries just a little bit more value, just because it's so hard earned. You can get to the end of Daytona, and I always kind of say you're just putting yourself in the lottery ticket at the end. You know what I mean? To shoot out, hopefully. Whilst championship, it's just every weekend you've got to be relentlessly consistent. So I think that's very hard to do.
That's fair. That's totally fair. So let's talk about the rest of the season now. We've talked a lot about Daytona, which makes sense. It's coming up. A little bit of a switch for you. You've been running in the GTD Pro class, and you're going to be moving to the GTD class. Why don't you kind of just explain for everyone what that change means?
Yeah, so that effectively, we've always run two cars at Vasser Sullivan, the 12 and the 14. Initially, both cars ran in GTD. Then the inception of the GTD Pro car, we were able to have one car in one class, one car in the other. And this year I'll be moving to the 12 car. I've raced in the 14 car for the last, I think, 6-7 years. So it's a bit of a change for me. It's new personnel. It's a new teammate in Parker Thompson, another Canadian. And I'm super excited about it. I think for us as a team, it basically spreads our bets a little bit more. So we have more opportunity across both championships than perhaps we've had in the past. And then for me, I felt I needed something fresh is kind of how I would describe it. I've had a great time working with that side of the garage, and the engineer who I worked with on that side of the garage was Jeff Ficklin, is the same guy I was working with in Star Mazda in 2012. So wow. I've been working with him for 12 years basically on and off, and so I have such good relationships with everybody on that side of the garage. But for me personally, I just really fancied something different. I felt like it'd been the same driver lineup, it'd been the same crew, same engineering. For me to keep growing as a driver, I felt like I needed something just a little bit different, and I felt this was exciting to me, and it made sense for the team, and we went ahead with it.
So even though it's the exact same team, do you feel like it's a new opportunity, as if you're a first day of school type thing, even though it's the same organization?
Yeah, completely. To be honest, it's that's everything.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nice. It'd be a bit. I guess it'd be a bit like if in IndyCar, and you had a 3 or 4 car team, right? And you did a complete swap, right? And now you're with different engineer, different assistant engineer, different,
crew
mechanics,
chief.
crew chief, everything. So for me, I just felt like, I'm super excited about that. Like,
That's great.
As a team, I feel like we have a really strong team as a whole across the board. But yeah, I feel like this year we're set up really nicely to have a go at both series, and it's just given me like a new, like I feel more butterflies than I did last year, just because at the start of last year everything was such a known quantity, right? Okay, I know how my communication with this guy is going to be. I know how I need to work with this guy, and it was all so like easy almost in terms, it was too easy in a way where you just kind of, it's very, I don't know what you guys are like, but for me, like I can get into a rhythm with something and it just doesn't become monotonous, but you don't feel like you're challenging yourself. Whilst now I feel like, okay, I've got to learn new people, new characteristics. It's a different situation, different kind of pressure. Like, so I just, I feel rejuvenated by it, to be honest.
Has it been the same car since the inception?
Exactly. Yeah. Same car as well. So
that probably leads into it as well, right? Because it's like there's only so much that you can do and develop, right, with the same package that you've had for a decade.
Exactly. Same package. And then we've had pretty much the same tire now. I think it's the second year with this tire, but we're on Michelin's for the last 6 or 7 years. So not much changed there. And that, honestly, if I'm being honest, can't talk too much about the future, but there's some exciting stuff in the near future for Lexus with the GT program. But it's a known fact, right, that we're racing the oldest, homologated car on the grid right now. So
you've got the DW12 of GT3 cars.
Correct. with the old aero kit.
I can empathize. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, exactly. It's quite similar in a way. And so also we're at a disadvantage in some ways, right? Compared to some of these newer manufacturers who have some newer equipment and stuff like that. So I think having strong cars across both GTD, GTD Pro gives us a good shot at both series. So.
And the difference really between the two classes is GTD Pro is an all pro driver lineup, where GTD you have to have an AM, quote unquote. So your argument to IMSA is that Parker Thompson is an AM? Is that what I'm hearing? Because I mean, I've seen that kid wheel. I don't know how that's possible. And if I was a betting man, I'd be putting money on the 12th car to win the GTD championship today, because that's a hell of a lineup.
I'm willing to throw my hat in the ring if you guys need a different AM.
We're good.
I think he's going to be all right. Yeah, I think he'd be good. No, I mean, it's the way the rules are written, right? Like you have each driver is given a ranking by the FIA, and Parker's a silver. But if you look at the GTD championship, really that silver driver is extremely important. Like if you look at the guys who've won it over the last few years, you look at when it was Van Thor and Robichon, you look at when it was Sellers and Snow, the silver guy has to be exceptional, right? And DeAngelis, when he won it, these guys are, a proper, right? So it's, bronze is kind of, if there was a bronze mandate, then it would be different. But with the silver mandate, it means it's, like a young up and comer. And that's what we've got. The Canadian cruise missile, young up
My
and
guy,
so,
the new PT. Yeah.
Yeah. I love, but just to touch on PT though, he's, I'm really excited about that as well. Like working with him, he's super quick and, he's young, and that's going to keep me on my toes. Do you know what I mean? Like working with him, and he's super motivated. I know you guys know each other a little bit, but really, professional and does the work. So I'm really excited about that. Like I say, we've got killer silver. So I'm pumped.
Well, look, I'm a big Parker Thompson fan. I'm a big Jack Hawksworth fan. I'm super impressed with the program that you guys run at Lexus. It's always been, one you keep an eye at every time we show up to the track at IMSA. So, Jack, thank you so much for coming on. We wish you all the best for the 2025 Rolex 24 and the entire IMSA season. Like I said, if I was a betting man, you guys are looking pretty early season favorites, I'd say, for a good title run. So, thanks for coming along, and best of luck.
Yeah, cheers, mate. And I'll see you at Daytona. So you're in Lamborghini this year, right?
Yeah. We've swapped over to the Lambo, and
nice.
The Plaid is back, so you won't miss us. And it should be fun. But again, we're in we're in slightly different classes, so you and I can get along on track. It's fine.
Yeah.
Your teammates though, 14.
I'll let them know. What's have you tested the Lambo yet?
As we're recording, no. By the time this is aired, yes. But it was a bit of a late swap. So I've been on iRacing quite a bit, trying to get up to speed.
There you go. Nice. That'd be exciting. Sounds good anyway. So I've always wanted to, the sound of it, the thing sounds mega.
Yeah. Hopefully it goes as good as it sounds, right?
Yeah. And are you racing Daytona, Alexander?
I am not. I'm going to be in Hawaii, but
there you go. That might be better.
Enjoy.
Let's go to Maui for a week. I feel like we might actually be on the short end of the stick here.
Yeah, I mean, I'll watch, maybe, probably not, but yeah.
You won't watch. He's already got his Rolex, so he's good, man. He's going to go sit on a beach.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you said, thanks for coming on, man. We appreciate it. Good luck, and we'll see you soon.
Yeah. Cheers, fellas. Awesome.
This has been Off Track with Hinch and Rossi. Off Track is part of the SiriusXM Sports Podcast Network. If you enjoyed this episode and want to hear more, please give a 5-star rating and leave a review. Subscribe today wherever you stream your podcasts. We are at Ask Off Track on Twitter and Instagram, and if you want to follow us on Twitter, we're at Hinchtown and at Alexander Rossi. If you want to follow Tim, though we have no idea why you would, he's at the Tim Durham on Twitter. Find us on YouTube and subscribe to our channel for exclusive video content. Off Track is produced by Tim Durham, and by that we mean Tim.